Hello, and welcome to another Miratech Talks. I'm Eric Delory. I am the CX practice leader here at Miratech, and today we will be talking about how augmented reality and virtual reality is already changing the face of customer experience and employee experience in today's marketplace. I have a very special guest today. With me is Levon Demurchyan, a game designer and development consultant for Alupa, a software design company that specializes in augmented reality applications and creating engaging content, both in the enterprise and the consumer marketplaces. Good afternoon, Levon. I think you might be muted.
Oh, I think I was muted.
Good afternoon, Levon. How are you doing?
Hello, good. How are you?
All right. So, Levon, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the augmented reality, virtual reality space?
Sure. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Eric and Miratech team. So I'm a VR game producer, and my duties primarily focus on making sure game development processes run smoothly. Over the last couple of years, I have had an opportunity to work with a stellar team at Alupa. We have launched a number of games and VR experiences on various mobile and PC platforms. I have also contributed to various white label AR applications that were targeted at improving customer experience, boosting sales, optimizing processes, and providing more value to the customer. Clients included large corporations and well-known IP license holders. So just to cover, augmented reality and virtual reality both have digital components, while VR thrives to completely simulate reality, and AR tries to augment our reality with digital data and media. Because I'm a game development professional, I will cover how gamification can add value to customer experience and employee experience through the use of these technologies. I'll try to provide some indicative use cases and explain how these processes run from concept to release.
Great. For those of you who are not really, fully familiar with what you do, can you kind of, explain about, the difference between augmented reality and virtual reality, or how you got started in this area?
Sure, absolutely. So I got started just after my tenure at Binary Quasar Studio. I joined Alupa as a game designer / game producer. Then I became the team lead over there and led the VR development team. The difference between AR and VR essentially is as I've said, they both have digital components to them. While augmented reality tries to use our reality and overlay some digital components over it. That can range from directions on the screen on inside of your mobile phone, or if we're talking about, for example, Microsoft HoloLens, it can be an overlay of the same data, but it's something resembling glasses, and you have a screen inside of it that overlays digital components over it. And virtual reality is a little bit different than that, although these two concepts go well together and they're grouped. But virtual reality essentially is you have a dedicated device that you put on your head, as you can see in the video, and it completely drops you into a 360 experience, which completely simulates another reality. And of course, it can range from you can go into like a simulation of a beg your pardon, of space station, for example, or a VR game, as you were able to show a couple of minutes before. What I do essentially is I make sure that those game development teams or software development teams deliver the project deliverable on time, on budget, on scope, ideally. And I have to make sure that the processes run smoothly, in 2 words.
So, we've just seen a few, visual examples of, it being leveraged in sort of a marketing play, which, Arlupa had a handle on with Coca-Cola in Eastern Europe. And we've seen it, just recently inside of a UPS safety training context. How many businesses are taking advantage of this tech compared to, 5 years ago or even a year ago?
Of course, it's hard to guess the exact numbers, but I saw a bit of information about it. 90% of executives of large firms in a poll said that they're considering or have already implemented augmented or virtual reality solutions in their business pipeline. This is a huge, I would say, accomplishment for the industry because it started definitely not there. Just as an indication, the AR user count is approximately 95 million users globally now. And it was 37 million users 5 years ago. So it effectively, I would say, tripled over a 5-year span. And 95 million is a huge number in my opinion. VR industry, isolated, of course, is also seeing major growth. In 2021, I saw a bit that said it's around 60 million people are somewhat VR users compared to 22 million people globally in a 5-year period. The money-wise or fund-wise, it started 5 years ago. It was around $3.5 billion, and now it's approximately $25 billion for the AR market isolated, and from around $4 to $5 billion by various accounts to $22-23 billion in the same period, of course, globally. Yeah, it's been a major growth, and some interesting facts might be interesting for the audience. I saw a bit of information. 78% of Americans are familiar with VR technology. By familiar, of course, it means that either they know what technology is, either they have a relative that has a VR headset, or they have a VR headset, or they use it regularly, of course, with a ranging frequency. It's an interesting bit also that China is actually leading with spending and adoption rates. A couple of things that might be interesting to know too is that 15-30% of experts say that user experience is the major impediment to full-scale adoption of VR technology. 20-30% of experts say that is in business and consumer hesitation. A significant portion of experts also says that, and users too, say that is the lack of content. Which just seems like a bummer, right? And the VR revenue accounts for around 35-40% of the global AR VR revenue.
Wow. So you went from tripling the user adoption, right, to, $25 billion, from a 3.5. That's almost 8x, right? So you've tripled the user account, but the revenue and the investment has gone, 8 times. Can you highlight some of the top drivers behind, AR and VR adoption?
Sure. I'll give it a try. It's quite interesting how like the network effect can catalyze the whole market, and I think one of the benefits that people saw in it was that. On a business side, I would say, is that it creates new avenues to improve customer experience. And customer experience, as we all know, is a major, maybe even the most important point in business now, because approximately, I saw a bit a couple of days ago, it's 95% of Americans, for example, say that they're ready to switch a business just because of poor customer experience. That's a staggering number, because that means that every business should pay attention to the customer service. And that is shown in the CSAT scores, which is customer satisfaction. And another term is an NPS. It's the Net Promoter Score. That is the ability of the customer to recommend it to a relative or a friend, which is an important point. It also, AR/VR technology also creates new possibilities to tap into new demographics and uncharted markets for the business. This is extremely important because some businesses are very limited in terms of, let's say, geography or the user demographic. And now with the advances of AR/VR technology, they are able to tap into new markets, which is an important, very important point for a market that is trying to penetrate, for a business that is trying to penetrate a market. I don't think it's a trend, and it's definitely, I feel like it's here to stay. Because of various reasons. One of them is it solves real business problems and solves them much better, cheaper, and faster than the traditional methods. We're going to definitely dive deeper into how is that done later on.
Can you explore? I mean, we mentioned CX, and I've provided some examples of that with the cosmetic industry. And with a Walmart experience actually being done in Japan right now, where you can locate items within the store. Can we explore a little bit about how can organizations use this to attract new customers or gain better customer loyalty by providing a better consumer experience when it comes to AR?
Definitely. One of the two examples that I like to bring is to highlight is, for example, Nike. Nike had as we all know, the online or the e-commerce business in itself has a major problem, that is the return rate, for example, because people generally order, let's say, sneakers and they don't fit, or they're not the same, the expected color, or they don't look as expected. One of the ways that for example, AR technology can literally just demolish that problem is Nike is a great example of that, because they have implemented through various platforms, by the way, an experience that people can use their smartphone and a camera with the computer vision to try on the sneakers before they buy. They can actually mix and match it with other apparel. And that is a huge technological advancement and don't forget that it's done from the comfort of your home. You don't have to go to a boutique or somewhere else to try something on, essentially. And another example for that is actually furniture. I think you've highlighted that. One of a giant IKEA has feature in its application that lets you actually place the furniture pieces in the house, real one-to-one scale. That is a huge advancement, because now you can use less space in terms of the business too. Like, you don't have to actually showcase every possible combination or every possible item.
Yeah, that sounds as though in the retail sector, with cosmetics, you allow the buyer to experience the product or the impact of the product right there in the store, or through their device, right, through a camera or their smartphone. You lessen returns. So, in the cosmetic industry, that's a spoil, right? In a retail industry with like a bike or with furniture, right, that's an out of box or open box item that then has to be restocked, and then sold at a discount, impacting margins. In the home furnishing space, you're now talking about huge showrooms, right, with hundreds and thousands of square foot, that is not necessarily needed if you can provide that at-home experience and with the materials. So you're talking about being able to sell much more consumer-facing products with less warehousing or showcases required.
Exactly.
Actually improving the buyer journey, right? As they're in a gamer's paradigm on this quest, right? For a good product, you're actually able to kind of guide them towards that and engage with them at a completely different level than other people. That's really interesting.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, what's next? I mean, how does we talked about going on a quest or building this customer journey, right? Um, does gamification actually help in a typical consumer process? Like I can imagine onboarding new customers or encouraging self-service options. How do the concepts inside of game development present themselves in the enterprise space when it comes to improving CX or encouraging them to sort of self-manage, their support and their onboarding?
Sure. Of course, it's hard to tell like if how every specific concept in game development or the game design in this particular sense transfers to the corporate world, I would say. But some of the obvious ones are easy to trace. I can actually start with an example with Nike again. I think some people might be familiar with Nike Plus. It is an application that tracks your miles traveled, ran, and speed of travel. The calories and stuff like that. But that's one part of the application because that's many applications can do that now. But what Nike does also is they encourage competition and achievements, which is it's a major motivating force in just the game experience, I would say, and that is obviously transferred from the game development into the corporate world. And competitions and achievements are a great ways to motivate customers in this particular case to run more and to compete with their friends. And another part, for example, is the leaderboards. Leaderboards are widely used throughout the game development industry and the game industry. They are they activate that challenge motif, and that is a very powerful driving force because then you want to compete with your friends and become the first one, or maybe your region, and etc. I think that's a great opportunity to upsell too at that point, because then you can combine products with unlockable features or stuff like that. Some of the gamified AR experiences have also helped a nonprofit organization like WWF promote important social issues. We had a project with them at our Lupa, and we made a huge campaign out of, from that experience, and it went pretty well, and it activated the users so that they have more knowledge about it, and WWF could spread the word better, in my opinion.
Now you're talking about the World Wildlife Foundation, not what I grew up with, not the WWF that I grew up with. No, that's WWE now, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
That's correct. Those are important social issues too, but
yeah. One of the trends that we talked about sort of in our last, or I've been talking about in the industry is, how a lot of the self-service models have, really accomplished, the sort of the low-hanging fruit, the easy to do transactions, right? And sort of your interactive voice response, or inside of your chat bot or your voice bot experience. Can you talk about, how does gamification or augmented reality help on the flip side of that with the employees, right? Either in a training quest or, as a sort of an assistive service when it comes to dealing with, more complex, customer queries or complex situations that they now find themselves in because the self-service space is sort of handled the easy cases.
Definitely. So there are a couple of things to like break down here. With the employee experience, it's pretty easy because you also have. I think you were running a video before we began. Um, it's very easy to scale the training programs when you do it digitally. Of course, some companies, back in the day, they used to train it on one. Then it transferred to, the web-based training programs, like, the recertification process went digital now, and then they started, creating that. Essentially, they were able to create one program to teach, indefinite number of people, but that in itself solved one problem, but not all of them. Another huge problem is, the employee churn or the employee turnover rate, which is, the recertification process and the retraining process is pretty tedious, and it's, a lot of employees don't, clearly don't like that process. What augmented reality and virtual reality can do is, depending on the industry and the field of application, they can actually like shift or offset some of it, and do it more scalable. By that I mean, for example, if you are a UPS warehouse employee, right? Essentially, if there's a policy change, you don't have to actually know the policy change. You can actually just wear a HoloLens glass or use your phone to and utilize the directions, for example, and then how to do the specific task you are tasked with, and you don't actually have to know the policies and procedures and safety measures. One application we made was for a corporate client. It was a construction company. We have created a VR training for their employees on how to actually adhere to the safety measures, and it went pretty well. So that's one of the applications.
Okay, all right. So I think we just covered this, right? VR and AR helping businesses train employees, improve both their performance and their experience.
Mm-hmm.
What about the longevity of this? I mean, is this really a tactical response, giving lockdowns that online retailers had to kind of create a new way of showing or showcasing their product, or do you see this as more of a much more longer term, much more deeper impact, in the future in general?
Sure. Yeah, it's I can see why that like thought might arise, but this is the thing: the augmented reality and virtual reality. If we consider this already the point where that industry has already accumulated its critical mass, it did so before the pandemic. So the pandemic just catalyzed the effect in that term, because now people weren't able to attend or go to the stores or the shopping centers and choose their own product and et cetera and et cetera. We've already covered that. So I don't think it's a trend. It's clearly not a trend. It's just that the pandemic in itself, the lockdown, has catalyzed the effect. And I don't see it going away anytime soon, because as I've said previously, it is actually solving business problems in their business pipeline much better than the alternatives. And I don't think there's something coming up better than that pretty soon.
Right.
So I don't think it's a temporary.
Right. I mean, so what are some of we talked about lowering the return rates, right? We talked about having a more compelling engagement, experience at the retail level. But I mean, what are some of the top reasons why this is starting to take off? I mean, what are some of the compelling things that are actually changing the way that businesses engage with the customer?
Yeah, some that I can outline would be, of course, as I've said, the new ways in which the business can enable the customer to interact with their product was unprecedented. And that is a huge point, because now, as I've said, for example, with a Nike, right? You don't have to go to the Nike store. You don't have to actually spend, let's say, 30 seconds on changing your shoe, right? You can do that right away. You can share that instantly with your friend. Be like, hey, which one do you like more, this one or this one? Which one should I buy? That is a major shift in the business to customer or B2C interaction. It's a new paradigm, because before that it wasn't like that. Of course, it was somewhat to that degree with the websites and the web applications that people used, but now it's completely different because now it's augmented in the world. That is one of the driving forces or the reasons. Another one is because that is on the gamification plus AR/VR side, or just the gamification side. Gamified products or gamified experiences are much more engaging. Of course, that's pretty obvious. They improve brand awareness. They engage the customer much better than the traditional methods of direct interaction with the customer. It does engage customers in ways that it was never possible before.
Sure.
It also turns them into influencers for the brand, because now people, because it's exciting technology, can they shoot a video and they post it on social media. Now it's effectively they're doing the marketing job or the sales job. So that's another reason.
Sure. I think so. We're going to get to the Q&A, but I have a personalized question. I mean, it's pretty compelling. I mean, we talked about lowering the return rate. We talked about how you can have a more engaging experience. So if I'm a business, right, and I want to get on the front and take advantage and kind of explore these opportunities, I mean, do I have to start a software firm, or are there like existing libraries and frameworks, already in place that I can just, engage? I can just start today and get some, really talented developers together and just, build my customized CX or EX experience.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. You don't need to start a new software firm for that. There are software firms specialized in doing that. And so it depends very much on your company goal, right? On your business strategy. You got to start there first, of course. You first need to understand if it's something that you want to explore or not. Then the second step would be there are plenty of companies that do specialized AR and VR software development for like in a white label sense. They can definitely help anybody who is looking for an integration in that sense. But also on the other side, as you've mentioned, there are many APIs and software development kits. For example, Unity or Unreal Engine. Those are like game development engines, as an example. They are pretty easy to start with, and people can explore how to do it. But on the other side of it is also, because user experience in itself is the major point here, it's pretty beneficial for a company like that if they don't have the capacity or the capability or the subject matter experience, I would say, would be a better word, to actually implement augmented and virtual reality user interfaces and user experience designs. I would much rather recommend them actually, reach out to a company that specializes in AR/VR software development.
Sure. Hey, so we have a question from the audience here, and it's, do you think that VR and AR is a must-have for retail businesses today? And what other industries should heavily consider VR and AR as a big influence to their CX?
The retail business very much depends, of course, on the on the business itself, because as I've said, the first point in actually doing a business decision of that scale is making sure that it aligns with your company's strategy, because you don't want to do something that is not aligned with your company's strategy, that is counterproductive. But just having in mind that, most businesses now, as I've said in the beginning, 90% of executives are, considering jumping into that. It's kind of a internet.com era of augmented and virtual reality. So we need to be able to keep our hand on the pulse, because those kind of technologies do the most shifts. Look at the Amazon, for example. It just changed the whole retail paradigm, just by the sheer use of the web force.
I see, when we take a look at what UPS has done, right, with just driver safety initiatives, you can actually look at, onboarding employees in this space, right, in this AR and VR space, because one of the things that I really like about sort of the gamification and the AR experience is that, one, you actually can assist the employees with their training and their onboarding, but more importantly, as the business owner, you actually have a record, right, of them going on that journey and achieving, those accomplishments, right? They're able to unlock new pathways of learning, and they actually engage with the learning experience in a more compelling way that is more trackable by the business, to make sure that the employees are growing and they're learning and they're sort of cross-pollinating the knowledge, right? To make them be able to handle those more complex tasks.
No, that's a great point, because now, in the modern business world, we're bombarded with data, and it's pretty hard for a business management, let's say senior management, to make any decision on how to handle a specific situation, or how to use or not to use a specific a certain opportunity. So in that sense, definitely the data that the gamification process provides, and it's pretty valuable data. There are numerous ways to kind of track what users are doing, and that's utilized to a major degree in the free-to-play market, for example, for the game development, for example.
Okay.
And yeah.
What do you see? I mean, can you think of any big trends in this field? I mean, people talk about the metaverse, right? But there's the meta companies out there who think about this metaverse. But in reality, when it comes to organizations, what realm, right, is going to be big when it comes to this either augmented reality or virtual reality experience in this space?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because generally making predictions is a very hard business, right? But I mean, by not doing predictions, right, we can notice that this possibility of metaverse going big and becoming the place to hang out now is there, of course. I mean, nobody knows if it's going to be or not going to be true. But even if we put aside the metaverse craze, right, aside, I see that with the advance of virtual reality and augmented reality, let's say user experience sophistication, right? Because it takes time for designers and UX designers and people that design systems, for them to figure out what's the best practice to make interfaces with the customer, right? Or the gamer in a particular example. So the UX would be definitely one of the major driving forces for AR VR adoption, right? Another one would be the technological advancement, right? Because now Oculus, for example, Meta changed the name, of course, but I would refer to them as Oculus. So Oculus has been doing major advancements in the technology, because now, for example, the other day I saw a video of actually implemented now technology that they can just by wearing the helmets, of course, with the user's consent, can virtually scan their body and transfer their avatar into a virtual world in a one-to-one, and with the color accuracy and with everything, like you would be a copy of yourself. That is huge, and that is done on the VR headset. 5G will play definitely a huge role in that, because now, with the advances of the connectivity, it'll play a major role in adoption too. And of course, it's just time. Every technology goes through this life cycle, right? The early adopters, the deniers, and then the early adopters, and then so yeah, it'll just take time.
Okay, all right, great. Well, Levon, I think we're over time. Certainly, time flies when you only schedule 30 minutes. It was really engaging. It's a fun topic. I could go on forever on sort of the CX and the EX space when it comes to these specific technologies. So I want to thank you for your time, and I want to thank the audience for their participation and their questions. We'll follow up. I asked the audience, to engage with us on LinkedIn and subscribe to our blog, and they'll learn more about how Miratech ourselves actually provide the software developers and the engineers to firms either rolling out AR and VR technologies inside of the CX and EX space, or we supply them to software development firms that are actually making improvements to the platforms themselves. So I appreciate your time today, Levon, with your experience.
Same here.
And
my pleasure.
Where you see the industry going. And I just want to wish everyone a good day and farewell.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Take care.